We move on now to our speaker. Mr. Matt Birk is a devout Catholic, a husband, and a father of 8. He is an athlete, and he is a leader. He was raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, and attended Nativity of Our Lord School and Parish, where he frequently served Mass as an altar boy. After graduating from Creighton-Durham Hall Catholic High School, he went on to our own esteemed Harvard University, and after graduating there, to the National Football League. In 2011, Matt won the NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year Award for his excellence in athleticism on the field, his consummate leadership, and his commitment to philanthropy and to community impact. In 2019, Matt co-founded Unity Catholic High School in Burnsville, Minnesota, in an effort to provide a vigorously Catholic education to families in the South Metro area. Matt is a deeply passionate man when it comes to Catholic education. He's driven because he feels that it gave him the foundational understanding that God has a purpose for his and every life. Matt and his wife, Adriana, along with their 8 children, are very active in the pro-life movement. The family resides outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. Please join me in welcoming Matt Birk.
Hard act to follow with those 2 beautiful testimonies, ladies. Thank you very much for sharing. I want to give you guys what you want tonight, so I figured I'd start with recounting the 2012 AFC Championship game when the Ravens of Baltimore marched into Foxborough Stadium and thoroughly defeated the New England Patriots. Still a vivid memory in my mind watching Tom Brady and Bill Belichick walk off the field with just a deep sorrow on their faces. Just kidding. First rule of speaking is give them a reason to like you, so I haven't done that. Maybe we can just unite on the common ground that we all strongly dislike the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right there for that. Are you a Steelers fan? Oh. I'm sorry, I'll speak slowly so you can keep up, all right? No, it is great to be here. It's just great to be alive. I don't know, I probably for most days I take for granted just the gift of life. Today, 8,600 people in America didn't wake up. And today, for another 8,600 Americans, today's their last day. So, you know, memento mori, remember your death, because death focuses you. It focuses you on what's important. And it's great to be here too, just because being in the pro-life movement it's just so much fun. You know, there's just so much joy. You meet the greatest people. It's just fun. I don't know. I don't have a lot of fun in my life. Not like this. So it's great. But you know, I kind of wish I wasn't here. I wish I was at home with my family. I wish I didn't have to be here. You know, I wish I didn't have to be in this battle. I wish it didn't exist. I'd have probably a lot more friends, a lot more money, but there's a battle to be fought, and that's why I'm here, and that's why you're here. And our battle is not against politicians. It's not against the pro-choicers, although I'll refer to them, so I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but it's against evil. It's against evil. You know, Mother Teresa said, St. Teresa of Calcutta said, if abortion is not a sin, then what is? We live in a culture where I don't know of anything more pure than motherhood. And we live in a culture that celebrates women, and it's not just women, we'll get to the men in a second, but where it celebrates women ending the lives of their own children. That is evil. And this is the issue, if you will. I hate to say it's an issue, but this is the issue in our country. This is the issue in our society right now. Until we recognize that every single life has dignity and worth, we're going to continue to have all these other problems that we have. This is where it starts. And it's, I don't know, I'm always kind of amazed when I get to this opportunity because I didn't foresee myself being here. You know, I didn't think my life would take this turn. I mean, I've always been pro-life. I grew up in the 80s, which was peak America, and some of you agree, some of you don't. It's fine. But I've always been pro-life. I mean, in the 80s, I mean, abortion was around. Obviously, it was legal. Not too far from my house, there was a public library. And that was significant to me because across the street from the public library was the Pizza Hut. And I was a lineman. I used to weigh 320 pounds. So food was really important to me. Still is. And we had this book it reading program where if you read so many books, you get a book it certificate every month. Book it? Yeah. Yeah. It's like solved the illiteracy crisis in our country single-handedly. So we'd go to the public library, get books, read them, get our bookets, and go across the street to the Pizza Hut. Well, right next to the Pizza Hut was Planned Parenthood. And so it was there. We'd see it all the time. And I guess it was just sort of part of everyday life. Didn't really talk about it in my family, but I was pro-life. I knew abortion was wrong. Every child knows abortion is wrong. You can't rationalize abortion to an 8-year-old. I've always been pro-life. I'm actually too pro-life. I was married in February 2nd, 2002, and we had our first child July 10th of 2002. Let you do the math later. I've always been pro-life, but I haven't always done pro-life, you know? Shortly after we were married, my wife started volunteering at a pregnancy resource center, and she was getting involved, and I was just being the supportive husband, meaning not doing anything. But then we moved to Baltimore, because if you play for the Minnesota Vikings and you want to win a Super Bowl, that's how it works. You have to leave and go somewhere else. I'm just going to try to offend everybody before we leave here tonight. And one day my phone rang, and it was the Archbishop of Baltimore, Archbishop Laurie. And he said, hey, I got your number from your pastor, and we're having a pro-life march down at the State House in Annapolis, and I want you to come speak for 5 minutes. And I've got this personal policy that if a priest, or especially if a bishop, asks me to do something, I just say yes. And so I said, gosh, yeah, thanks for asking, I'll be there. And I was really nervous because I'd never done anything pro-life before. I'd never spoken out about it. And so that day was a Monday, and so I went to daily mass that day, which wasn't happening a lot back then. I was busy. I was trying to win a world championship. So I went to mass, and I was like, all right, God, you got to speak to me. I have to give this brief talk tonight. And I was really nervous, and the gospel that day was the Gospel of Matthew. It said, whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do unto me. And I thought, man, God, thank you. You are speaking to me, right? The least of our brothers and sisters, that's the unborn. And so I drove down to Annapolis that night, and we had mass at the cathedral, and Archbishop celebrated the mass, and lo and behold, it's the same gospel reading. It's a Catholic joke. And Archbishop Laurie gives his homily, and he talks about the least of our brothers and sisters. That's the unborn. That's why we're here. And I thought, son of a gun, he stole my stuff. So now we're marching from the cathedral to the State House, and I'm nervous. I have no idea what I'm going to say. And I'm walking next to this woman, and we're kind of making small talk. And I said, well, why are you here? And she said, because I'm an abortion survivor. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. And she said, when I was 16, I had an abortion. And it's the worst mistake I've ever made. And I'm here because I don't want other women to make the same mistake. And again, like I said, I hadn't done anything pro-life before. Well, I come to find out there were hundreds of women there that night who were abortion survivors. And I'm thinking to myself, who cares what a football player has to say on this? Like, just put these women up there and it's over. Like, we can all go home, because that witness, that testimony will tell you right there that abortion is not a good thing. And so that lit something in me that day, and I started to, follow my wife, and we got it more involved. And a couple years later, we won the Super Bowl. Did I mention that? We won the Super Bowl? Main message tonight, Matt Birk won a Super Bowl. And so then I retired, and shortly after that, I got a letter one day in the mail from the White House, which doesn't happen that often. And I opened it up, and it was an invitation to come to the White House. They invited the entire team, which I thought was a nice gesture. Couldn't have done it without my teammates. Invite us to the White House. Well, 2 days before that invitation arrived, then President Obama was the first sitting president to address Planned Parenthood. And at the end of his speech, he said, "God bless Planned Parenthood." And I just thought, obviously it's very upsetting. Abortion is legal. You can support Planned Parenthood, but you can't say God bless Planned Parenthood. And so, our kids were getting older, and we were starting to drag them along to pro-life things, drag them along, kicking and screaming. And I just said, I didn't really feel like I wanted to be a part of that. And I explained to my kids, this is why I'm not going to go. And I was setting a good example, and just checked no on the invitation, and that was it. Well, like a month or two later, I'm at the gym trying to lose weight, because that's what retired linemen do. And I see on the wall of TVs, it was, Ravens visit the White House. And I was like, oh, today's the day. And I saw my teammates there, and it was like, oh, it looks like they're having a good time. That's good. And I got in my truck, and my phone was blowing up. It was all these reporters from Baltimore asking me why I wasn't at the White House, because I was the only player that wasn't there. And, they were asking me, like, are you mad the Ravens didn't bring you back? And I was like, listen, I retired. I could have gone back if I wanted to. Probably not, but... And they kept pressing me, and I was like, you really can't run and hide from anybody, and not that I had anything to run and hide from. So I just finally said, I didn't go because of President Obama's speech. I just didn't want to take part in that. And that's when I discovered the 24-hour news cycle, because I was in it. And I was doing interviews, and I'm going on like Fox News, and I was like, oh, that went pretty well. And then I went on CNN, and I was like, well, that didn't go very well. But that was really the first time, I think, where I really felt the spiritual battle that is going on here. I mean, all I was saying was, I think we can do better than abortion. I think we can do better than telling women who are unexpectedly pregnant that you can either have an abortion or you're on your own. I think we can do better than that. I was getting all this vitriol, and that's that's really, I guess that's why I'm here, because since that moment, or since that happened, a million people have come up to me and asked me why I'm pro-life. I'm just kidding. Nobody's ever asked me why I'm pro-life. Has anybody ever asked you why you're pro-life specifically? I mean, honestly, no one's ever asked me. It's pretty self-explanatory. Think about it. Nobody ever asked you to justify why you're pro-life. It's the other side. It's that has some explaining to do. Okay, which we'll get to. So no one's ever asked me, but if they did, I would tell them that I have a lot of imaginary conversations in my head. If they did ask me, I would say, well, it's faith and reason that inform my pro-life position. Faith and reason are complementary, and faith and reason help you get to the truth. I believe in God, and I believe that He is the creator of the universe and the creator of all life, and that we're all made in His image and likeness. There are no unplanned pregnancies by God, only humans. There's a beautiful quote by a poet named Carl Sandburg. I don't read poetry, obviously. It says, a baby is God's opinion that the world should go on. I love that quote. But sometimes, we know that if the pro-life position and people of faith are dismissed, it's almost like, well, yeah, you're a Christian, so it doesn't really count, okay? Well, the other reason that I guess I'm pro-life is because I don't find the logic of the pro-choice side very convincing. When does life begin? That's a question that they cannot answer, and they will not answer. They know, but they will not answer it. If you actually Google when does life begin, Google, not exactly known as a bastion of Christian or conservative values, Google says that life begins at conception. That's what science says. I hail from Minnesota, which unfortunately is probably just as or more extreme as Massachusetts when it comes to abortion. Minnesota has become an abortion destination now because some of our neighboring states have passed very strict abortion legislation. Actually, a number of our abortions have doubled in the last year. Since 2022, 8 babies have been born alive during botched abortions and been allowed to die, have not been given care. That's barbaric, that's horrendous, that is evil. A lot of times people say, well, abortion's legal. Like, so it must be right? I mean, it's legal. So what? We've had tons of bad laws throughout the history of our country. Slavery used to be legal. Women used to not be able to vote. The fact that it's legal means nothing if you're trying to really get to what's right, what's the truth. I mentioned the woman that I met that night down in Annapolis who told me that she was an abortion survivor. I find it extremely compelling that we've heard of a lot of women who have worked in the abortion industry and have left and now work for the pro-life movement. In fact, we know that this movement is being led by millions and millions of women who previously have had abortions. That's a powerful personal testimony. A lot of times when you're having this debate, and I have a little PTSD. I did run for lieutenant governor in Minnesota in 2022. Obviously didn't win, so I have had some conversations, had to answer some questions, and a lot of times they'll bring up the instances of when a woman becomes pregnant due to a rape or incest, which is kind of like, let's not worry about the 99.8% of pregnancies, abortions we're talking about. Let's focus on the exception. Obviously, rape and incest are horrific things that exist. I was, shortly after we won the Super Bowl again, I only won it once, but I was doing an event and they had a bunch of speakers, all of us were gonna speak for a few minutes, and we were standing next to the stage, and there was this young man in front of me who was extremely nervous. He was sweating and he was pacing, and I was trying to calm him down a little bit, and I was kind of worried about him, to tell you the truth. And he got up on stage and he talked about how he'd been adopted from Korea, and he'd spent years trying to track down his birth mother, and he finally tracked her down, and they were gonna meet. And he flew over to Korea to meet her, and she didn't show. And he left, obviously disappointed, and came home, and after he got home, his birth mother sent him a note, and she said, notifying him, or informing him that he had been conceived during a rape. And she just still felt a lot of shame, and she just couldn't face him yet. And by this point, he's bawling, everybody else is bawling. I gotta follow this guy. I'm thinking, what am I gonna say? And he said, all I wanna do is hug my mom and tell her thank you for choosing life for me. I don't know if an abortion to end a pregnancy that was created through a rape is gonna help take away the pains of that atrocity. In fact, I think that there's a really good chance that it's gonna make it worse, because we know that the wounds of abortion are deep. There are actually countries in this world that are touting the fact and bragging that they're going to be Down syndrome free by 2040 or 2050, because they're going to abort all the babies in utero who are diagnosed with Down syndrome. As you know, obviously to be pregnant and to get an adverse diagnosis like that is not something that anybody hopes for or wishes for, but I'm sure we all know somebody with some sort of I'll say handicap. I have a niece who has trisomy, who's 13. Francesca's, she'll never live on her own. She'll wear a diaper her entire life. She'll never hold a job. But when you walk into a room, Francesca knows who you are. She lights up. She comes over. She has to give you a kiss. She wants you to do head, shoulders, knees, and toes. She wants you to jump. Like you can't have a bad day when you see Francesca. Her life is just about spreading joy. That's all she does. And I know that she's taught my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, I know she's taught them more about love than anybody else. That's an amazing legacy to leave. Probably greater, well, for sure greater than whatever legacy I end up leaving. But these people bring so much joy to so many. I think in this world today we need more joy. I don't know why there are people actively working against that. Of course, there's the argument of my body, my choice, which is interesting. I mean, it fits on a bumper sticker, so I guess it's effective. But what if we all saw a woman who was 9 months pregnant sitting on a park bench, drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels and smoking a cigarette? I don't think we'd all walk away saying, "Well, her body, her choice." We would think that that's wrong. People always say, "Well, you're a man, right? Man, you're a man. What right do you have to tell a woman what to do with her body?" I'm not telling anybody what to do with their body. I'm just saying that it's wrong. It's wrong to kill another human being. And there's one thing that doesn't get talked enough about by anybody on either side of this, which is adoption. My family's twice been blessed by adoption. We were blessed with 6 biological kids. We had 3 girls, and then we had 3 boys, and we were told that we're not able to have any more children biologically, and we named the last one Brady. Kind of felt like we had 3 girls, 3 boys. This is nice. I like symmetry. This is good. And then my wife said, "Well, what about adoption?" And we'd always talked about it someday, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." Because deep down, I was thinking, there's no family that's going to pick us. Like, there's no birth mother's going to choose this. I mean, they're going to look at, they're going to say, "They already got all these kids. Are my kids, like, are they even going to get fed?" So we opened ourselves up, and the first day that our profile was out there to be viewed, 2 birth moms picked us. 2. So the first one, it was very late in the pregnancy. She was trying to figure out a way that she could raise this child on her own. She already had 2 kids out of wedlock. This child was conceived. It was a one-night stand in Vegas. Didn't even know the dad's last name. But she just realized that she wasn't going to be able to do it. And we talked to her on the phone, and she said, "I just don't want people to think that I don't love this child. I don't want people to think that I just don't love this child." And I rarely say the right things to women, but I said, actually, what you're doing is the greatest act of love that I've ever witnessed. I mean, for a woman to have the courage to do that, and the selflessness. And so our son Weston, we have a beautiful relationship with her. She loves him. We FaceTime her all the time. She's doing well, and it's beautiful. The second one was a much different experience. The birth mother, this was the 5th child that she was going to place up for adoption. We talked to her once on the phone. It was obviously she'd had a very rough life. It was rough. And she kept not showing up for phone calls. And one day we get the call that the baby's born. We're like, what? Like, you're supposed to call us like days ago. And we were living in Florida at the time, and my wife had to get to Phoenix. I was living in Naples, Florida, which it's not a real town. So there's not a ton of flight options, but I looked on my phone, and in 2 hours, there was a flight leaving to Phoenix. Well, just so you know, a little pro tip for you, you can't book a flight on your phone that's leaving in 2 hours. They don't let you do that. So we started speeding up the freeway. I pull up to the curb, like put my truck up on the curb, blow open the door, I run in, I run to the ticket counter, I'm like, this woman needs to be on that flight to Phoenix. And the guy behind the counter was like, okay. I thought I was saving the day, but my wife got to Phoenix, and the birth mother had just left the hospital. She just walked out, unhooked herself, and walked out. There was a warrant out for her arrest. And my wife called me and told me that the baby had tested positive for all sorts of drugs and alcohol. And I remember for about 10 minutes, or for 10 seconds, I was just filled with a rage, because that was my son. And I thought, how could she do that to my son? And then it just like all went away, because I remembered that she did the best she could. And she had just given our family the greatest gift that anybody could give us. And I'm happy to report that, you know, Hudson, my man Huddy, he's okay. He's wired up now. This guy, he'll be playing middle linebacker someday for somebody. But yeah, he's But I read there's over 1 million couples in America wanting to adopt. And a lot of them don't have any children, and a lot of them are praying really, really hard that a birth mother chooses them. And to think about it, you know, an unplanned pregnancy under whatever circumstances, you could take that and you could be the answer to somebody's prayers. That'd be an incredible, I mean, you're talking about being an instrument. That'd be truly amazing. We need to talk about adoption more, and we should be working to make it more mainstream and more affordable. But so like all these arguments, I think that they're intellectually dishonest, and here's why. Because they act like abortion is necessary, but they won't admit that if the number of abortions went down, that would be a good thing. I don't think Planned Parenthood supports women. I think what they're telling them is, well, you're not strong enough. You can't do hard things. So they push women towards abortion. And so I don't think they really are pro-choice, because that's all they talk about is abortion. I think we really are by supporting organizations like First Concern. I mean, we are the pro-choice people. We're actually making it possible for women and families who are in really tight spots, really, really difficult spots, to actually choose life, giving them choices. So none of this, like, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, which can only mean one thing. That, like I said, this is a spiritual battle. This is the devil. It's good versus evil, and the womb is ground zero. I would have gotten a lot better grades in college if I wouldn't have watched so many movies. There's a great movie I watched a bunch. It was called The Usual Suspects. And anybody see that movie? It's a good movie. And Kevin Spacey's character, he talks about Kaiser Soze. He says the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist. Like I said, this isn't a political issue. It's not a Christian versus whatever. We got to remember, this is evil. That abortion is not a right, that it's a wrong, that it's not good because it ends human life and it harms women. It's not women's health care. It's not freedom of any kind. It's actually bondage. The wounds of abortion are deep. They're physical, they're emotional, and they're spiritual. And they don't always heal. So it's a mistake, and I think it's playing right into the devil's hands when we make this a political issue. Shame on me, shame on us. Being pro-life is way more than just outlawing abortion. It's about creating a system where women feel loved, supported, and empowered. That's what the pro-life movement is about. It's about love. It's about women. It's about loving women and loving babies, and that's what we are about here. Unfortunately, the abortion industry preys on vulnerable women who are alone and scared. It isolates them, and it lies to them. And there's really two things that have been proven to be extremely, extremely effective in helping women choose life. One is ultrasounds. When a woman sees her child, we're human, right? We all got a little Thomas in us, right? We got to see it to believe it. When a woman sees that ultrasound and sees her baby, the chances of her choosing life of an abortion-minded woman are a lot greater. I heard doing an event once, this woman started a pregnancy resource center 40 years ago, and she said if a woman's stomach was glass, she'd never choose abortion. The second reason why women choose abortion is because they feel alone. And men are primarily responsible for this. If men were men, if all men were men all the time, I think that makes sense, we wouldn't have abortion. We wouldn't need abortion. And most of our problems in society could be solved if men were better fathers. That's what First Concern is doing, right? I mean, these amazing programs, ministering to the men to help them, but also coming alongside women, as we heard, and being there in their greatest time of need. We have an opportunity to come alongside women and families in their greatest time of need. People in need exist for us, and when I say us, Christians. They're there for us. We get to help them. We get to live Jesus. The purpose of the pro-life movement is not to cast judgment on past decisions. It's to impart wisdom on future decisions. And the goal is not to make abortion illegal. It's to make it unnecessary. I think we can, and we are, showing the world that there is a better way. So what do? Well, the first thing we do is we pray. None of us are going to solve this, right? Right? I mean, and it can be dark sometimes, for sure. But I know this. I know God's not up there worried, trying to figure out what he's going to do. We're not going to solve this, he is. But we need to pray because lives are at stake and because souls are at stake. We need to pray for people who are working in the abortion industry, for our leaders. We need to pray and ask God, what is the role that we play in this battle? And the second thing we need to do is, most of us, because this is our role, is to give. The first coach I had in the NFL, Denny Green, he said, you got to know your role, accept your role, and be the best at your role. We need to give because this is a movement versus an industry. I think Planned Parenthood now receives over $1 billion a year in federal funding. So it's not a fair fight, but luckily we have the truth on our side. So yeah, this is kind of like the Sermon on the Mount here. So just remember that some people are so poor that all they have is money. I'll leave you with this. There's a great quote by Henry Hyde, who was a pretty colorful congressman, pro-life Democrat, actually, from Illinois. And they passed the Hyde Amendment. He wrote the Hyde Amendment, which is credited with saving over 2 million babies. I think it's been repealed, but this was his quote. "When the time comes, as it surely will, when we face that awesome moment, the final judgment, I've often thought, as Fulton Sheen wrote, that it is a terrible moment of loneliness. You have no advocates. You are there alone, standing before God, and a terror will rip through your soul like nothing you can imagine. But I really think that those in the pro-life movement will not be alone. I think there will be a chorus of voices that have never been heard in this world, but are heard beautifully and clearly in the next world. And they will plead for everyone who has been in this movement. They will say to God, 'Spare him, because he loved us.' And God will look at you and not say, 'Did you succeed?' but rather, 'Did you try?' Ladies and gentlemen, the world is moved by our example, not by our opinion. We are pro-life. This is what we do. We uphold beauty, goodness, and truth. We were made for this. So don't just be pro-life, do pro-life, and keep being a light in a dark world. Thank you, and God bless you.